Welcome back to Rad Futures, Alan Collinge of studentloanjustice.org. We're going to hit it.
So this is a video, and this is going way far afield for student loan justice, but this is the footage of Charlie Kirk being murdered last fall. Mm-hmm. So there's a conspiracy theory that Charlie was murdered and that there is a link between a guy called Lane Schoenberger, who is the head of a student loan company, YREFY. And so, son of a gun, I'm gonna have to dig it up again here.
Okay.
It went somewhere. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna share my screen. Here it is. So this is Charlie Kirk right after the shooting, and I will enlarge my screen here if I can.
Okay.
And I'm just going to rewind this for a minute. So you can see that guy right there. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but on the right-hand side of the screen, he's apparently sort of shoving a security guard to the side. Let me bring that up one more time full screen. That guy right there behind the camera, he takes something from the guy who was first over Charlie's body. So he immediately takes something from the guy, puts it in his left pocket, and then let me just redo it again. He puts something in his left pocket that he got from the guy, and then he takes a cell phone out of his right pocket and starts taking videos of the murder. Well, I guess they didn't show that whole part, but so there's a very suspicious handoff going here. There he is taking photos of the actual crime scene, and people all over the internet. And you can find the footage for yourself all over Twitter.
Yeah.
But people all over the internet are pointing to this as being some sort of evidence that something weird was going on here.
I mean, it seemed suspicious to me. They seem to be tampering with evidence. I mean, if I was an investigator, a detective, right?
It looks very clear to me that he does take something in his left hand from the guy who was first over Charlie's body when he fell back. So he takes something in his left hand, he puts it in his left pocket, and then he reaches into his right pocket, pulls out his cell phone, and starts, I guess, taking pictures or something like that. So is there something there? You never know. I'm not going to make any crazy assertions. People do strange things during high tension times when crazy things happen. So who knows? But this has a very direct tie-in to student loans, believe it or not.
Can you tell us how, why, how, what's the...
Well, that guy, Lane Schoenberger, a longtime Arizona resident, he is the founder of a company called YREFY. This is a company that came out. They really made a huge splash in the media starting around a little more than a year ago. What this company does is they target distressed private student loan borrowers and they put them on the hook for paying again. And that's what they do. So if you're defaulted on a private student loan, you call YREFY. It's really kind of a dirty business model that they are running, though. And I want to.
So if you're defaulted, you call a company like YREFY. They say, yeah, we can help you consolidate your loans and get you a lower monthly down payment, while they also get a kickback. Isn't that right? They get some kind of a kickback.
No. This is different. These are private student loans only that we're talking about. This is not federal. This is purely private student loans.
Gotcha.
So what they do is you default on a private student loan, you call YREFY. they will purchase your loan from the lender and put you back on the hamster wheel to resume payments and get it taken care of. And they say they can offer some benefits to borrowers and so on and so forth. But here's what this company is actually doing. And if you have private student loans, particularly if you're defaulted on your private student loans, you absolutely need to know this. Unlike federal student loans, private student loans have statutes of limitations. So this is a time, and it depends on what state you're in, can depend on what state the lawsuit is filed in, really, at the end of the day. So there may be some ambiguity there, but depending on what state applies to these loans, there are statutes of limitations. Sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's 7 years, sometimes it's 10 or 15 years. It's usually somewhere, I think 7 years is probably the most common. After 7 years or 5 years or whatever it is, those loans become time barred. They become legally unenforceable. So after a certain amount of time, the loans become worthless. They are no longer your legal responsibility to repay. And these loans in the private lending market, these loans are worthless. So if you have, $1,000, you can buy probably, I don't know, $1 million worth of these defaulted private student loans, pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. They're time barred, they're worthless. But the thing is, a lot of borrowers don't know this. So if you have a defaulted private student loan you haven't paid on in, say, 2, 3, 4 years, and you call YREFY, they will check with the lender, and they are able to purchase these loans at a very deep discount, if not literally pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. So if you have a $50,000 defaulted private student loan, YREFY may be able to get it for a few $100s. Or if it's, if you're, say, on year 4 and the statutes of limitations expire at year 5, you may be able to get it for, I'm just guessing, like, $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. So the borrowers don't know that. They call YREFY, and YREFY, if they sign on to doing this transaction, YREFY will buy the loan, and then they get a new loan. And the statutes of limitations is now out the window. The clock on the statutes of limitations is reset. So this is I'm quite sure this is harming a huge number of borrowers who don't know about these statutes of limitations.
Yeah.
If you're defaulted on your loan for 4 years and statute of limitations is 5 years, $50,000 loan, you could wait a year, and assuming that the lender doesn't sue you, and they usually don't, you're done. You're free of the debt. Mm-hmm. But YREFY, I'm guessing, doesn't tell people this. And so they sign on to a new $50,000 loan. And by the way, because they're distressed and they know they're distressed, then who knows? YREFY can charge them even more interest than the original loan was for. You have the borrowers over a barrel.
Yeah.
So, and I should say, this is apparently extraordinarily lucrative, mm-hmm. because YREFY is spending a ton of money advertising both to the borrowers, but also to potential investors. And so I want to show you another quick video. And this really goes to how deep this company had their hooks into Charlie Kirk. So this is a promotional video, a commercial that Charlie Kirk did for YREFY in the, I guess, in the months before he was killed.
This is fascinating.
YREFY. Let's start with the facts. Yes, it's true. YREFY investors earned fixed rates of return, with options ranging from 1 year at 6.5% to 5 years at 10.25%. And it's true, your interest is compounded daily. You're paid monthly, and there is no early withdrawal penalty against your initial principal investment. When you invest with YREFY, you have the freedom to turn your investment income on or off compound it, whatever you choose. Because your interest is fixed, your monthly statement will contain no surprises. This is a collateralized portfolio. Would you like some more information?
So you kind of get the idea of what's going on here.
Yeah.
10.25% returns, guaranteed returns to investors. That is extraordinarily lucrative.
Yeah.
You would be very lucky if your 401k got a 10.25% return.
Yeah.
Almost nobody guarantees those kinds of returns to investors. YREFY does. And so that is, to me, that's the clinching evidence that YREFY is making a ton of money out of this deal. And not only that, the fact that it's not just Charlie Kirk that was doing ads for them. It's other financial other influencers, people like Dave Ramsey, who's just a snake in the grass. A younger kid, Caleb Hammer. He's kind of like a younger, fatter Dave Ramsey, just a kind of a douchebag in my humble opinion. Pardon my French. But this whole pit viper's nest of influencers have been captured by this company, YREFY, and they're now pitching their wares. And so, I attacked Charlie really viciously about this about a month before he was killed. I felt terrible afterwards, not because I attacked him. I think it was the right thing to do. I frankly thought that Charlie was a good guy, heart in the right place generally. A younger guy, when I was 30 years old, I was very vulnerable to being co-opted by nefarious influences. I think everybody is at that age.
Yeah.
So I'm not attacking Charlie, but I'm just kind of wondering, how deeply this company actually had their hooks into him. And really, what is up when nearly all the right-wing influencers, like Caleb Hammer, he's conservative leaning, Dave Ramsey clearly is obviously his audience is conservative.
Yeah.
Turning Point USA and Charlie, very conservative.
Yeah.
So, that's the most important outtake from what I take from this is that conservatives have these student loans in very high numbers. This is not a liberal problem. In fact, only 30% of student loan borrowers are liberal. 70% of student loan borrowers are either independent or Republican.
Yeah.
And this is obviously a very hot market for the lending industry, for the student loan industry. So forget everything you hear about student loan borrowers being these liberal, elite, entitled snowflakes with LGBTQ, all that stuff. That's all nonsense.
Yeah.
And the fact that YREFY has invested so heavily in marketing to conservatives proves that in spades.
And as you've shown many times, even here on this channel with, different sort of screen shares and, slides, the states that are getting wrecked the worst financially because of the student loan debt system are largely Republican dominated in the South, right?
That's absolutely right. If you look at the best, and there are no states are good, but if you look at the best states in terms of like the average student loan debt versus the average earnings in those states, the best states are like, Vermont and Massachusetts and Washington State and, all these blue states.
Yeah.
The worst states, it's Missouri, it's North and South Carolina, it's Florida, it's Texas, Georgia, it's the entire South. It's red states. And so people need to just not believe what you see in the media about student loans. 99% of it is just nonsense. It's propaganda.
Yeah.
They are completely mischaracterizing the nature of the federal student loan problem. It is far more a problem with conservatives, certainly conservative states, than it is for Democrats.
Yeah.
And, I wish I'm really sorry that Charlie died, because I think I was on the way towards changing his mind. We had a long-standing email argument going, and I think I was convincing him, but at this point, well, it's kind of it's we'll never know. But just such a tragedy, and I hope they get to the bottom of it. I don't know what to say about all the conspiracy stuff. That's outside my lane, but I guess put a pin in it.
It's interesting, though, I think, right, to note the video that you showed, because it's, I guess, can we ask, is it a stretch to get conspiratorial about this? I mean, I've said many times on X, student loan debt, and the not just the debt itself, right? But it's what I mean when I say student loan debt is Washington D.C.'s biggest secret. What I mean by that is the negative, deleterious effect it's having on our purchasing power, as the lower and middle classes in this country find themselves more and more unable to buy things, right? To especially big ticket items, right? Nobody is out here buying homes. Is it a stretch to get conspiratorial when we see videos like this with Lane? Is it Lane? Is that his name?
Elaine Schoenberger or something.
Schoenberger, right? YREFY guy happens to be present at the assassination of Charlie Kirk and is like very intimately involved.
Well, it's great. It's a great point. There was a reporter from the Daily Mail that I interviewed with a couple of weeks ago. She did a story, and she said that what prompted her to do the story was she was just following around Turning Point. I don't know about before, but certainly after Charlie Kirk's death.
Yeah.
And after his death, this guy Lane, he was opening like many, if not most, maybe even all of the Turning Point USA's events.
Yeah.
And he was saying things like, I don't want to quote exactly, but it was like, Charlie believed in YREFY, and he wants you to believe in YREFY too, and like just trying completely just capitalizing on the death of this guy.
Weird.
Which is just
Strange.
beyond classless. But Turning Point is a very large, very well-known organization at this point, even before Charlie's tragedy. And so what is this company, YREFY? And the reporter said, I'm doing this story just because it was just very weird to me that this company, YREFY, was opening Turning Point events like across the country.
Yeah.
He was opening for, the vice president and, all the political luminaries that speak at Turning Point events. And I mean, he was very, 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 very visible. And so it piqued her interest. And, I kind of have to wonder as well, we've seen many deep, dark forces out there working very hard behind the scenes to perpetuate the student loan scam, both federal and private. Very odd organizations like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, for example. Like the one thing you would think the Chamber of Commerce would want would be student loan cancellation, because it frees up people's money so they can engage in commerce. They can buy things and start businesses and all those good things. Well, the Chamber of Commerce went to great lengths. I think they even filed an amicus brief, if I'm not mistaken. They may have, against that really lame cancellation attempt that Biden tried a few years ago. So we've got these very strange, blatantly hypocritical and antithetical organizations fighting very hard to keep this loan scam going and keep the borrowers on the hook forever. And it doesn't serve the interests of their stated mission, certainly not the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
And so one can be forgiven for wondering aloud what actually is going on here. Like, it's just bizarre. Student loans should have never been more than a footnote in this nation's history. And the fact that they've grown to be, I would say, bar none, the worst financial scandal in modern American history, even more harmful than the subprime home mortgage crisis in many ways. Subprime home mortgages, I don't think more than like 5 or maybe 10 million homes were foreclosed on. But we're talking about tens of millions of student loan borrowers.
45 million plus.
Well, if you include private student loans and cosigners, it's over 50 million. And 85% of these people, so 40 million people, are hopelessly underwater on their loans. This is ruining the lives. People who had subprime home mortgages, maybe it was their second home, maybe it was just an investment vehicle. Okay, well, they walked away and they lost their shorts, but they walked away. There are no bankruptcy protections for student loans. There are no statutes of limitations.
There are no consumer protections.
There's no consumer protections. And so private student loan borrowers in general, both federal and private, they are being harmed far worse than most, if not all, subprime home mortgage borrowers. And, it's affecting the birth rate. It's affecting people starting families. And, this is a social harm that far and away exceeds whatever financial Wall Street harm was caused in the subprime home mortgage crisis. Mm-hmm. So why are people like the Chamber of Commerce and, why are these supposedly well-intentioned financial advice people like Dave Ramsey and Colin Hammer and even Charlie Kirk Turning Point? Why are they going to bat for this poisonous, toxic industry that is so harmful to the country, including Republicans? And I would maybe say especially conservatives, given that they are marketing almost exclusively to them. Obviously, that's where the money is.
Yeah.
It just baffles the mind. It really raises more questions than it answers.
It does. Why are they going to bat for a system such as this? It would make me, right, even if I was completely detached from my background in criminology and social analysis and stuff like that, I would still be asking the same questions. I would still be asking, what's really going on? Like, there must be some kind of incentive that's being pushed at some level in the background, right? Otherwise, why would these people all, who are all, by the way, connected to people in Washington, why else would they be involved at all? If there wasn't lucrative opportunities, YREFY wouldn't exist, right?
Right. And I'll give you my best guess. So number one, greed, obviously, but even more deeply than that, student loans are the first type of loan in this country to be uniquely stripped of the constitutional bankruptcy rights that the founding fathers called for in the Constitution. They are a one-off, a very unprecedented step that Congress took in removing this right from student loans. Well, if they can do it to student loans, they would love to do it to, you name it, credit cards, medical debt, really any consumer debt. If you can remove bankruptcy from student loans, the door is wide open to strip bankruptcy rights from every nickel of consumer debt out there.
Yep.
And there are some very deep, dark forces that would love to conquer and enslave this country in debt. Yeah.
For sure.
So if this student loan precedent is allowed to stand, we're headed down a very dark and dismal path as a country. And so I don't know what Lane Schoenberger's role in all this is. Who knows? You'd have to ask him. And quite frankly, I hope people will ask him.
I do too.
We should be putting the hard questions to people like the Chamber of Commerce or groups like the Chamber of Commerce, to Turning Point, to a pit viper's nest of so-called libertarian NGOs in Washington, D.C., like the Cato Institute. There are some good people at Cato, but there are some very bad people at Cato that have been fighting for this loan scam for decades. Grover Norquist, even people at the Brookings Institute,
Right.
people at the College Board, even people at Harvard University, liberals, they've been fighting very hard behind the scenes to keep the right of bankruptcy gone from student loans. And, I hear whispers all the time that, they're thinking about doing it to medical debt next. So if I had to guess, I would say the next domino to fall will either be medical debt, maybe credit cards, although that's a tougher sell because people would lose their minds. You'd have to be very soft and delicate the way you slip that in. But, there's no telling where this might end. But if our opposition is allowed, it will definitely end in this nation being essentially conquered and enslaved, which is exactly what the founding fathers didn't want when they called for uniform bankruptcy rights.
Happy 250th.
Yeah, right. What did the founding fathers fight and die for? They didn't fight and die for this. I guarantee you that. The founding fathers are on our side, the people's side, the borrower's side. And I can only hope that everybody out there with student loans is realizing the very unique position we find ourselves in, the trap that if we don't fight, we're going to be wrecked for the rest of our lives. And, for the purpose of this country, and I'm talking to conservatives and liberals alike, the parties don't matter with this. It's a uniparty thing. No matter what your political stripes, you should not want this country to be conquered and enslaved by debt. And John Adams said that himself, as did many of the founders.
It's disgusting to me to think, we have free market capitalism. We're a country that obviously champions that, right? Our president has filed bankruptcy something like 6 times, I think, or something.
So has the Secretary of Education, by the way.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, she filed twice. Once, I think, personal, and once for the World Wrestling thing with her husband.
It's disgusting to me that in this sort of cultural, economic, socioeconomic milieu within our country, or, and let's expand it out even globally, right? We have transnational corporations that are doing all kinds of things all over the place. But within this country, with all of the opportunities that anyone with any kind of investment capital has at their disposal, because if you have money to start a business, to become an entrepreneur, to be an angel investor, to do anything on a business level, and you have capital backing you, it's disgusting to me that anyone in their right mind would identify student loan debt as a viable investment to capitalize on. You know what I'm saying?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, what kind of a company eats, what kind of a farmer, would a farmer, eat his own seed corn? No, a farmer would not do that. And it's just disgusting on every level. And, turn on any golf tournament that wealthy people tend to watch on television, and you will probably see a YREFY commercial promising these people 10.25% guaranteed annual returns. This is not the way we want to go as a country. When the federal student loan program was first rolled out, President Johnson declared that the loans would be free of interest. He said that. He said the loans will absolutely be free of interest.
Yeah.
Well, here today, the Department of Education is clicking off $115 billion a year in interest.
Yeah.
They are attaching to the citizens. That's far more than they lend out every year. They lend out maybe $80 billion a year. It's been, believe it or not, declining in recent over the past decade or so. They are taking in $110 billion in interest, aka profit. And even Donald Trump, knows about it. In 2015, Donald Trump said, why are we as a country, as a government, why do we see student loans as a profit center?
Right.
If anything, the government shouldn't be making money off of it's student loans. Donald Trump said that. The Republicans are going to get the blame for all the pain that people are feeling around their student loans right now. And this is a perfect storm, the likes of which I have not seen in the 22 years that I've been following this issue closely. And the Republicans are going to be absolutely smoked in November. There may be nothing you can even do about that. But the student loan issue alone guarantees their catastrophic defeat. So if they want to have any hope in the midterms, they would completely change their tune on student loans. They would return bankruptcy rights before the midterms. And in my humble opinion, I think they need to, and this would be good for conservatives. It wouldn't cost them any votes at all. They should put the colleges on the hook, particularly the wealthiest colleges, the Harvards and the Yales. They need to put the wealthiest colleges on the hook to reimburse the government for discharges and bankruptcy. So it's not going to be a whole lot of money, actually. $6 billion a year is my best estimate. But the Harvard's endowment will grow by over $6 billion this year. So the wealthiest colleges can easily afford to pay for bankruptcy discharges. And the Republican base would love it. But more than that, the 3/4 of student loan borrowers who are independent or maybe even some Democrats, they would look very favorably on that. And I think it would probably sway a huge number of independents and probably a pretty significant number of disaffected Democrats. So if we're talking about Hail Marys, and let's be honest, the Republicans need a Hail Mary this November. Returning bankruptcy rights to student loans, putting the colleges on the hook to pay, that is exactly the Hail Mary. That's the only Hail Mary I could see that they could possibly do. So if you're a Republican or if you're in with the Republican Party and you are worried about a strategy for November, this is your best shot. In fact, I would think it's probably your only shot if you want to avoid absolute mayhem and existential ramifications in the upcoming midterm elections. It is going to be brutal against the Republicans.
I agree. Tucker is starting a third party, apparently.
I did not hear that.
Tucker Carlson's talking about starting a third party. And I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is somehow involved in that. So I don't know.
I would be very happy to see that happen. I've picked out a couple of good Republicans from the narrow lens of student loan justice. And the people I identified are people like Matt Gaetz. Thomas Massey actually is number one on the list. There's some others as well, Josh Hawley, John Cornyn in Texas, and maybe a handful of others. But there's clearly a schism within the Republican Party. And Tucker Carlson, believe it or not, love him or hate him, Tucker Carlson knows full well about student loans and what a scam they are. And about the injustice the injustice with having bankruptcy stripped from the loans. He has said that publicly, including when he was working for Fox News. I think it may be one of the contributing factors to his exit from Fox News, quite frankly. But Tucker knows. And, there's many conservatives out there, from people like, Mike Cernovich, influencer on Twitter. I said Matt Gaetz. People at the National Review. There's many conservatives out there that fully agree with our very strong position that bankruptcy rights have got to be returned to these loans.